Thank you. I promise not to spend all the time what is left according to the program. But first of all, as Kathy today earlier said, that in our project we need an external evaluator. Unofficially, we have already one. And Doyle, do you have any comments related to the Baltic issues, focusing on that? Or you said everything earlier already?
Thank you. I did say most everything earlier. One of the issues that came up is students. We talk about learning being a focus, but learning for what purpose? And we prescribe what students have to learn. Students tend to have very little say in what they're able to learn, and they won't learn unless they have a purpose for learning. And we often don't talk about what their purpose is. Normally we say, you have to learn this, and our job is to persuade them to do that. But what I see as empowering for school leaders, this ability to do research in their applied setting, that's an ability that's not limited just to school heads. Inquiry and research are powerful tools for leaders, for professors, for governments, and for students, and for teachers, and for communities. And if we can practice this as part of our leadership, doing collaborative research on the school sites together with our allies in government and in universities, model that for our teachers, show our teachers and our school partnerships with parents how to do that, even make that work within classrooms as part of instruction. I think that's a set of tools that gives students more control over their futures, gives them a greater sense of purpose and influence, and that can only be empowering. And when we look for democratization in education, I think these are some of the great tools at our disposal that we can work more with. But thank you all. It's been a great pleasure and a wonderful conference. Bravo.
Thank you, Doyle. Summing up and picking up maybe some points what were done today, but not only today, also yesterday and the day before that, then one key word for all presentations and discussions was teamwork, working together. I can see that, speaking about Baltic region, there are already some steps. Just said a few minutes ago that parents are going further on together. Maybe school heads are following that example. It will be seen in some weeks. But team and teamwork, it is not so easy. It needs anyway some kind of leadership. And if we speak about leadership, then usually we reach to the general philosophical ideas and principles. What we are going to do, for what we are going to do, where is our goal, and quite often those things are far away from people making their own decisions. We as leaders have to decide quite practical things, but taking those headings in our mind as like general milestones, where to go and what keeps us on the right track. And this is a complicated thing to follow those general rules or general ideas, but making very concrete and maybe very small decisions, practical decisions, to support this thing or not, and how is it related to my school vision or our association vision or mission. Is it to that direction or is it not? And this is a very complicated thing. Another one is personality. As famous Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov already said that, it's a place for laughing, that staff is deciding everything, and it's true. Right persons in right place, that is very important for school leadership also. Going to the Second World War, Japanese who captured several American militaries as prisoners, they divided those persons into two groups. They tested them, and persons having leadership abilities were divided from the rest of soldiers, and those were put into prisons which were very well looked by their guards. And the others, the rest, was put to camps which were just few gunmen looking for them, and almost nobody escaped from Japanese prisons. First ones because they were very well guarded and looked not to organize anything, not to be responsible for escaping, and the others because they were not able to do that without leaders. So we need leaders in our organizations and in our institutions to run. Where are born leaders? Where do we get those? We get those from families. How they are born in the families. We have to educate them from the first day of born. How we can do that? Thomas told us we have to trust parents. Parents have to trust children. Give them possibility to make decisions and to be responsible for the decisions made already on the 2-3 years old level. And it means huge investment, not only funds, not only money investment, but also time investment into early childhood education, into parents' education, how to treat children at home, how to educate them at home before they are going to the kindergartens or before they are going to schools. And it's a long, long way to go. Coming back to the Baltic perspective, yes, 25 years ago we had very similar school system. Same curricula, same principals graduating schools, same grading system, etc. Same qualification requirements for teachers, same teacher education system. Getting back our independence, every country made its own way, made its own decisions, how to go further on, what we are choosing, where we are going, what we are looking for, and how we solve our problems, because problems in different countries were a little bit different. Quite similar, but still different. And that is creating systems which are not so similar anymore today, but we still have that similar background, and we still have many teachers who were educated in the time when our systems were very similar. So there are many problems which are common for all three Baltic countries also. And that could be basis to go further on to try to find maybe common solutions and common understandings today also. So we can speak about some Baltic frames. But going further on, looking into education as a major process, we have to understand the situation that we are not anymore in the 17th century. It was time when Comenius decided or created so-called class education system. Many people, many children about the same age, about the same preparation were put together into one room and they were educated similarly. Something similar like Ford made in car industry at the end of 19th century, the beginning of 20th century, and he was very successful. Same happened with the school system. Many children were taught together. And the reason for that was just one postulate. The main source of knowledge is a single teacher, not so many bright teachers. So you need many children to follow teachers' thinking, to follow wisdom, what teacher was, divine to those children. What is today main source of knowledge? Is it still teacher? I would say no. Why we still keep, especially on lower secondary and upper secondary level, the same system, covering same level educated children together into the same rooms? Is it needed? We haven't asked that question yet quite often. I would say that we don't need that anymore. Maybe we need a little bit different system for that. But what system could replace that? I'm not ready to respond today yet. But we have to think together what it could be and how we can solve it, how we can be sure that diplomas, what are given to the graduates, are still valuable, that they still say to the society that graduates are fulfilling these and those requirements, that graduates are capable to do this or that, to be responsible, to be well educated, etc. So it's a complicated task, and it's not task only for the Baltic region, it's task for the whole world. Because anyway, we all have to find our solutions to that task. There was some remarks about minorities. It was many years ago when I was in Uppsala University Library. And one doctoral thesis paid my attention. It was about Serbian minorities in Swedish society at the beginning of 19th century. And in that doctoral thesis, it was studied what Serbians behaved and how they behaved in that time Swedish society. First generation, they came there somewhere 1830s. First generation, they behaved like Serbians. They followed Serbian traditions, they followed Serbian church, created their own buildings, and they were Serbians living in Sweden. Second generation, their children, they were like people without roots. They were halfly like Serbians, still speaking Serbian language, halfly following Serbian traditions and culture, visiting sometimes Serbian churches, but at the same time communicating with the other people in Swedish, following also some Swedish traditions and rules. So they were between Serbians and Swedish people, being not Serbians and being not Swedish, so they didn't have their own roots. But the third and the fourth generation, their children and those children further on, those behaved as the best Swedes in the world, despite their strange family names. But they required very high national expectations, and they demanded from the real Swedes that no, you have to behave like we, and you have to follow all national traditions and national qualities. And later on it became softer again. So what I'm saying about Russian minorities in Baltic countries, yes, time is different. Russia is just here behind the border, not far away like Serbia was from Sweden. And today's communication options are much better than in that time. But at least in Estonian policy I can see some policymakers, politicians who have Russian family names, but positions, what they are defending and what they are estimating are quite national, Estonian national positions, similar to the same logic as it was in that doctoral thesis. So maybe in Latvia and Lithuania also, in 20-25 years, you will have several politicians, right side, nationally right side, but having Russian names. It means pay attention in today's schools also to those groups, how they behave, what are their values, and try to include them to any activities, not to forget those minorities. Inclusive education is very, very important issue today. And just at the end of the conclusion, maybe we have to come back to the teacher's role. Sometimes teachers complain that we poor teachers, what we do, what are our options? Parents behave like customers, they demand. Children come to school, they demand. School principal demands also several things to do as what we can do. And what I would say, really, teachers are leaders also. They are very highly educated. At least in Estonia, they mostly have master degree. Master level people, those are top level specialists. Top level specialists are not complaining. They are requiring or they are consulting, and they should be strike back and know how to behave professionally and how to educate children. Yes, it makes more complicated to lead the school by principals. It makes more complicated by the ministries to run the schools, but in that sense they will have partners with whom to discuss things, how to solve problems and how to go further on. And in that sense the need that teachers' voice is going to be not only visible, but we can hear it, and they are able to protect their own positions and discuss about that on equal level. That is probably one most important things in Baltic region, in my mind. But as I said, I'm not going to speak a lot. I would like to thank organizers of this event. If anybody likes to add any comment or any thought, you are welcome to do that. No comments. Yeah, check it.
It's just one very brief comment. I have particularly appreciated the contribution of students this afternoon. To give their time to come and give us their perspective. I really am, and I'm sure we're all tremendously grateful, and I wouldn't want them to go away without realising that we have taken on board what they're saying, that we need to involve them more in the future, to have that student voice embedded in what we're doing. Parents too, ministries too, of course, but sometimes the student voice isn't taken for granted in quite that way, and I just wanted to say thank you for that.